If you're looking for a game-changing weapon you can snag pretty early on, one that packs a massive single-target beam damage and room-clearing energy chains with almost zero effort, look no further than the Kuva Nukor. Today we're breaking down everything you need to select Vanquish to finally claim that shiny Kuva Nukor in your Foundry. Now, when it comes down to modding your weapons, there are plenty of options and opinions out there to consider, especially if you're trying to build a weapon to carry you through high-level content without relying on Warframe abilities, helmet sub-skills, or Archon Shards for synergy. That's why I always try to focus on what works best for all skill levels and access points. Keeping this in mind, I've been running through dozens of setups and testing them in simulated high-end scenarios to find what gives you the absolute best total clearing performance. This is, hands down, the easiest, most accessible setup I've found to completely clear everything from standard star chart missions all the way through Steel Path content. Let's break down the mods on screen and see how they work together to create a room-erasing powerhouse. First off, we have Galvanized Diffusion and Lethal Torrent. These two are non-negotiable. They stack your multi-shots and fire rate through the roof. Because the Kuva Nukor's main beam splits and chains to up to 4 nearby targets, stacking multi-shot doesn't just hit harder, it multiplies the actual energy streams, frying everything in the room. As for Hornet Strike and Galvanized Shot, Hornet Strike gives you heavy raw base damage right out of the gates, so the weapon feels more powerful immediately. Galvanized Shot takes that base damage and scales it even higher for every unique status effect stacked on that target. Now, since this Kuva Nukor setup inherently applies radiation, microwave, magnetic, and heat, Galvanized Shot ramps your damage up exponentially in a matter of seconds. Now, as for Prime Heated Charge and Pistol Elementalist, this combination is where the true room clearing magic happens. Prime Heated Charge floods targets with brutal heat procs that strip enemy armor by up to 50% while dealing tick damage. Pistol Elementalist boosts that status damage by an extra 90% and gives you faster reload speeds. As your beam chains through a crowd, these amplified heat ticks continuously melt enemy health bars even after you stop firing. Now, adding extra magnetic damage amplifies your effectiveness against Overguard and shields by up to 325%. This means Eximus units and heavy shielded enemies can't slow down your clearing speed. Their outer layers just get stripped instantly, so the heat damage can do its job. Now, as for the Prime Target Cracker, the Kuva Nukor has an unbelievable 10.5 times base critical multiplier, and Prime Target Cracker pushes that to a staggering 12.2 times. But this is where our secret weapon comes in, our arcane Secondary Enervate. This is the missing piece that ties the entire build together. Secondary Enervate grants a flat 10% critical chance on every single hit. Because a beam weapon hits dozens of times per second across chained targets, this arcane instantly forces your weapon into yellow, orange, and red critical hits. So how does this room-clearing beam weapon perform against the ultimate tanky targets like Eximus units and the Shadow Stalker? Normally, beam weapons can struggle against boss-type health pools, but this setup completely trivializes them. When the Stalker spawns, the magnetic might immediately shreds through his shield layer. Simultaneously, your multi-shot pumps dozens of status instances into him in milliseconds, maxing out Galvanized Shot and rapidly ramping up Secondary Enervate. By the time your beam hits him for even half a second, you're hitting forced orange and red crits with a 12.x multiplier while stacking boosted heat ticks from Pistol Elementalist. He doesn't even get a chance to adapt to your damage types. His health bar just simply vanishes. Now, I know some of you looking at this build might not have access to all the galvanized primes or even high-tier arcanes like Secondary Enervate just yet, and that is completely fine. You can still make this weapon an absolute monster early on with basic alternatives, but please keep in mind that the core mechanics of this weapon, as I've shown you, the beam chaining, status stacking, and high critical damage, are all due to these high-end mods. So please make sure that you are doing your best to get these replaced and put into position as quickly as you possibly can. Starting off, we have those multi-shot mods like Galvanized Diffusion. You don't necessarily have to have it. You can replace this with Barrel Diffusion, and this works because it gives you a straightforward 120% multi-shot right out of the box with zero scaling required. This is slightly a less overall multi-shot than the fully stacked galvanized version, but it will be immediate and there will be zero setup. This is an easy mod to get your hands on. As for base damage and status scaling mods, Galvanized Shot, which is granting scaling based damage per unique status effect, you can switch this out for mods like Hornet Strike or Pistol Pestilence. If you don't have Galvanized Shot running, Hornet Strike alongside a dual status mod like Pistol Pestilence guarantees solid flat damage and high status applications. As for status damage and Elementalist mods, the Pistol Elementalist, which is that 90% status damage with reload speed, can be switched out for Scorch, which is 60% heat damage, 60% status chance, or Scorch Thermite rounds. Why it works is because Pistol Elementalist scales the tick damage directly. Now, stacking traditional 60-60 status mods will increase your raw status application rate, causing heat to stack high enough to mimic the damage output of it. As for the critical damage mods, we had Prime Target Cracker, that's 110% critical damage. Well, just use the lesser version, Target Cracker. This is going to offer you a 60% critical damage without needing Borrow Katir or a massive Indo investment. Also, combined with an Arcane, this still multiplies your hits pretty significantly. As for the elemental and utility mods, Prime Heated Charge, that 165 heat damage, can be switched out for just regular Heated Charge. This provides a flat 90% heat damage for much less mod capacity and Indo cost. As for that main build, the Magnetic Might, which is 60% magnetic damage plus 40% critical damage. This cannot be received until you're getting into the Hex, or you could just buy it off the market from other players. But if you aren't that deep into the game and you're looking for an alternative, just throw Frostbite or Jolt, which are both 60-60 status mods. This will add extra status diversity to feed damage scaling while still remaining easy to acquire from Spy or Void missions. As for Arcane alternatives, the Secondary Enervate, which is ramping up your critical chance on these hits. You can use Secondary Merciless, which grants base damage and reload speed on kill, and this is pretty easy to grab from trading with other players, and you can slowly level that up. If you don't have an Arcane, then using Creeping Bullseye is a good alternative here as well, because if a player has no Arcane Adapter or Arcane's unlocked yet, replacing Magnetic Might with Creeping Bullseye, that's 187% crit damage, can give them a baseline critical chance boost natively if you can find and get your hands on Creeping Bullseye for a decent price. When looking at energy-based secondaries, including heavy hitters like the Tenet Cycron, the only weapon that sits in the exact same league as the Kuva Nukor is the OQ Core. Both of these weapons operate on a similar level, completely erasing dense rooms of steel path content with practically zero effort. However, there's one huge differentiation. However, there are two huge differences between them. One, raw single target burst damage. The other is aimless efficiency. So if you ask me which one I personally enjoy using more, I'd hands down say the OQ. So if you were to ask me which one I personally enjoy using more, I'd hands down say the OQ Core. Mostly because you barely even have to aim the thing to delete entire zip codes around you. But where the OQ Core starts to fall off is when you are forced into a high health single target fight like taking on Shadow Stalkers on the Still Path. In those moments, I usually have to swap off the OQ Core to a heavy primary to finish him off. The Kuva Nukor, on the other hand, melts him just as fast as my Incarnate Latron does, so there's really no change there. The trade-off is you actually have to aim the Nukor and land your beam on a target, whereas the OQ Core auto-targets in a general direction. You could say that requiring actual crosshair placement is the price you pay to get that that insane single target damage advantage. Another key difference is ammo efficiency, because without pistol ammo mutation slotted in your Exilis slot, the Nukor more or less will eat through its reserves in almost every single map that you run in. Because you need that ammo conservation, you lose out on running Ruinous Extinction for extra beam range. The Aquisition avoids this problem entirely thanks to its exclusive Sentient Surge mod, which keeps your magazine perpetually full as long as you keep scoring kills. At the end of the day, it's really a toss-up depending on your playstyle, but one thing is absolute: when you walk into a room packed wall to wall with still path enemies, both of these weapons hit like absolute freight trains. So whether you want to auto-aim room clear stuff with that Aquisition or the raw boss melting power of the Kuva Nukor, adding this Kuva secondary to your arsenal is definitely one of the best investments you can make for your star chart progression. Now, if this guide has helped you out, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below which one are you taking in the still path, the Nukor, or are you going to go back with that original Aquisition? And if you want to hang out live, talk builds, or see these weapons in action on high-end content, come catch me live on Twitch over at NerdBirdKR. Until next time, Tenno, happy hunting, and I'll see you out in the Origin system.